On October 23, 2009, a 15-year-old girl led police officers deep into a forest near St. Martin's, Missouri. With swift movements, she showed them exactly what they were looking for: a well, one that she had dug herself. This confirmed for the police that what she had written in her diary was more than just the product of a teenage imagination. What they found left them utterly shocked. They struggled to comprehend the sheer malice that had driven this young girl to such an act. It was hard to believe that someone so young could be consumed by such dark impulses. Alyssa Bustamante was born on January 28, 1994, in Cole, Missouri. Her arrival was far from planned. Her parents, Cesar Bustamante and Michelle Brock, were teenagers struggling with addiction issues and were unprepared for the responsibilities of parenthood, as they could barely manage their own lives. When Alyssa was still very young, her mother faced arrests on two separate occasions, once for drug possession and another time for driving under the influence. Though they had little interest in raising a child, the couple went on to have 3 more children, twins and a little girl named Emma. Over time, Michelle's legal troubles continued, but it wasn't just the law that kept her away from her children. Eventually, she decided that she no longer wanted to be a mother and left, never to see Alyssa or her other children again. Cesar, now solely responsible for the children, also had a troubled path. In 2002, when Alyssa was 7, he was convicted of assault and sentenced to 10 years in prison. With both parents out of the picture, Alyssa and her siblings were placed under the custody of their maternal grandparents, Gary and Karen Brock. The children moved to St. Martin's, Missouri, where their lives took a drastic turn. Karen, a devoted Mormon, aimed to guide her grandchildren along a disciplined and structured path. She established strict rules for the household, including mandatory church attendance every Sunday. This approach worked relatively well for Emma and the twins, but Alyssa proved to be more resistant. As Alyssa entered her teenage years, her behavior worsened. By 13, she had become withdrawn, preferring to keep to herself and avoid others. Behind her tough exterior, however, Alyssa was deeply hurt, leading her to begin self-harming with razor blades on her arms. On September 3, 2007, her grandparents found her in the bathroom, bleeding. She had carved the word "hate" into her abdomen and taken an overdose of Tylenol. Karen and Gary rushed her to the nearest hospital. Once her physical condition was stabilized, they sought help from a psychiatrist. Alyssa was diagnosed with depression and bipolar disorder, and she was prescribed Prozac, but her mental health showed little improvement. With access to social media, Alyssa began to embrace and broadcast her rebellious personality. She shared posts with dark quotes, posed with deep red lipstick mimicking blood, and styled her eyes with exaggerated eyeliner, often showing her teeth in an attempt to intimidate followers. Her interest in dark themes wasn't just an act. She wanted the world to know what she was capable of, and she often involved her younger siblings in her expressions of rebellion. She created a YouTube account and her bio read, "I like cutting myself and killing people." Not long after, she uploaded a video titled "Electrocuted by Electric Fence" with a chilling description. Here's where it gets good. This is when my brothers get hurt. The video showed Alyssa coaxing her 9-year-old twin brothers into holding onto an electric fence meant for livestock. As the boys writhed in pain, Alyssa could be heard laughing in the background. Outside her home, Alyssa's behavior was no less troubling. She had conflicts with classmates and teachers, and she continued to harm herself, sometimes with cigarettes and other times by carving scars into her skin, a count that reportedly reached over 300. By age 15, her disturbing personality had reached its peak. During a party, she told a friend that she was curious about what it would feel like to take a life. Her friend dismissed it, assuming it was just an attention-seeking comment. Just days after her last psychiatrist visit, Alyssa's medication dosage was increased, but it wasn't enough to keep her inner turmoil at bay. On her Twitter account, Alyssa shared haunting thoughts about addiction and nightmares, once posting, "All I want in life is a reason for all this pain." She was reaching out for help, and perhaps if she had received it, the tragedy that unfolded might have been prevented. On Wednesday, October 21st, 2009, around 5 p.m., Emma, Alyssa's 6-year-old sister, knocked on the door of her friend Elizabeth Olten's house, inviting her over to play. Elizabeth, who was 9 years old, hesitated. Her mother, Patricia "Patty" Price, was preparing dinner, and her brothers, Anthony and Stephen Olten, were practicing songs for a school event. Despite the timing, Emma's eagerness convinced Elizabeth to ask her mom if she could go out for a little while. Patty agreed, under 2 conditions. Elizabeth had to return before dark and take her cell phone with her. Happy with the plan, Elizabeth joined Emma, and they walked the short distance to her house, just 4 blocks away. As the evening progressed and daylight faded, Patricia became worried when Elizabeth didn't come back on time. She called her daughter's phone but got no answer, which alarmed her further. She then went to Emma's house to speak with her grandparents. Karen told Patricia that she hadn't seen Elizabeth all day. Growing increasingly distressed, Patricia continued calling her daughter's phone, but each time it went to voicemail. With fear mounting, Patricia decided to report Elizabeth missing at the police station, and the search began immediately. Officers combed the neighborhood, but there was no sign of Elizabeth. By 11 p.m., news of the missing girl had spread, and many volunteers joined the search. Officers at the station tried tracing Elizabeth's cell phone signal, discovering that it was still nearby, somewhere in the wooded area between her home and Emma's house. This discovery puzzled Patricia, as Elizabeth was terrified of the woods and would never have ventured there on her own, especially in the dark. The FBI joined the search effort, deploying specialized dogs and even divers to search the nearest river, but they found no trace of Elizabeth. Then, some volunteers stumbled upon what appeared to be a freshly dug hole among the trees. It was large enough to fit a person, yet when police arrived to inspect it, the hole was empty, leaving them with more questions than answers. Returning to square one, the police decided to interview Emma, the last person known to have seen Elizabeth. Emma grew nervous but eventually admitted that, while playing in the woods, Elizabeth had gotten tangled in some thorn bushes. Emma ran home to ask Alyssa for help and then hadn't seen her friend again after that. With this new information, investigators turned their attention to Alyssa. They discovered that she had skipped school the day before Elizabeth's disappearance, an unusual absence given her spotless attendance record. When questioned at the station, Alyssa appeared calm and composed. Instead of asking her directly about Elizabeth, officers inquired about the strange hole found in the woods. Alyssa claimed she had dug it herself, explaining it was meant to bury dead animals. This response only deepened the investigators' concerns. That same day, police obtained a warrant to search Alyssa's room, where they uncovered disturbing details. Her walls were covered in sketches and phrases, some seemingly drawn in what looked like blood. Among the writings was a chilling statement. "I cut to make physical what I feel inside. I cut to see blood because I like it." The room also contained letters from her father in prison, but nothing immediately connected her to a crime until they noticed something else. A drawing with Emma, written in red, stood out. This made detectives wonder if Alyssa might harbor violent intentions toward her sister and had chosen Elizabeth as an easier target instead. The final piece fell into place when they found her diary. Inside, Alyssa had written disturbing confessions, including a desire to burn down a house with all its occupants inside. On the last page, a date was scribbled, October 21st, 2009, the exact day Elizabeth vanished. Beneath the date, two barely legible words seemed to say "throat" and "cut." Forensic experts worked to recover the full text, while detectives called Alyssa back to the station for further questioning, sensing she was hiding something. This time, Alyssa appeared even more at ease. Investigators didn't hold back, mentioning what they had read in her diary. Cornered, Alyssa finally spoke, but what she revealed left them in shock. Alyssa claimed that Elizabeth had died, but according to her, it was an accident. She had simply fallen in the woods. The officers didn't buy Alyssa's story. Locking eyes with her, they challenged her by saying, "If we find the little girl's body, her throat will be cut." In that instant, Alyssa's expression changed completely. They knew they had caught her. Meanwhile, forensic experts were analyzing the partially erased entries in Alyssa's diary. They recovered a chilling passage that read, "I just killed someone. I strangled and cut their throat and stabbed them. Now they're dead. I don't know how I feel right now. It's amazing. Right after I did it, I felt like, I can't do this," which was actually pretty enjoyable. "Now I'm kind of nervous and shaky. I have to go to church now." Investigators noted that Alyssa spoke of her victims in the plural, which raised questions. While no other disappearances had been reported, the fact remained that Alyssa had dug not one, but two holes in the forest. This, combined with her sister Emma's name written ominously on her wall and the YouTube video where she hurt her younger siblings, led detectives to suspect that Alyssa might have originally planned to harm her siblings, but ultimately targeted a less obvious victim. An alternate theory suggested that Alyssa might have intended to kill again if her crime went undetected. With mounting evidence against her, Alyssa confessed to the crime, though she refused to explain why she had used plural references or dug two graves. On October 23rd, Alyssa led the officers to the exact location of Elizabeth's grave, not the empty hole volunteers had found, but the one that held all the answers. Deep in the woods, officers discovered Elizabeth's lifeless body. Alyssa had concealed her so well that none of the searchers had noticed the grave. She was immediately arrested and charged with first-degree murder, meaning the crime was premeditated. She was taken to the Cole County Jail where she awaited trial. A forensic examination confirmed that Elizabeth had been strangled, her throat and wrists cut, and stabbed. With these findings, authorities reconstructed the harrowing events. On Friday, October 16, 2009, Alyssa, who had no school that day, used her free time to put a sinister plan into action, digging a grave in the woods. 5 days later, when Emma invited Elizabeth over, Alyssa decided it was time to execute her plan. After playing in the yard, Alyssa called Emma and Elizabeth into the woods, under the pretense of showing them something. Once there, Alyssa convinced her sister to leave her alone with Elizabeth. She and Elizabeth walked deeper into the woods until they reached the two holes Alyssa had dug days earlier. As Elizabeth walked ahead, unaware of the danger, Alyssa struck her brutally on the head. Though stunned, Elizabeth remained conscious. Alyssa then pinned her down, strangling her until she passed out. To make sure her victim would not survive, she pulled a knife from her back pocket and stabbed Elizabeth 8 times in the chest, later cutting her wrists and throat. She then dragged Elizabeth's body into one of the graves, covering it with rocks and branches. 45 minutes later, Alyssa returned home, acting as if nothing had happened. As the case gained media attention, the police withheld details, including Alyssa's name and age, to keep the case untainted for trial. Additionally, there was serious consideration of trying Alyssa as an adult due to the crime's severity. Missouri, one of the 22 states with a dual jurisdiction system for minors, allows suspects to be detained until age 21, after which a court reassesses whether they have been rehabilitated or must complete their sentence. Prosecutors were determined that Alyssa, seen as a threat to society, should face full accountability. Elizabeth's family held a princess-themed funeral on October 28, 2009. The casket arrived at the cemetery in a horse-drawn carriage, greeted by friends and family dressed in pink, Elizabeth's favorite color. Those who knew her described her as a sweet, kind child who loved cats and was a bit shy yet friendly. On November 17, 2009, a judge ruled that Alyssa would be tried as an adult, and her photo was released by news outlets. Her defense attorney expressed that this decision placed Alyssa in grave danger, as she now faced the maximum penalty, which he considered excessive given her age. Additionally, he worried that Alyssa might not survive her time in the Cole County Jail. At her next court appearance on December 8, 2009, reporters gathered outside, eager for a photograph of the young defendant. But to everyone's surprise, despite her confession and the evidence against her, Alyssa pleaded not guilty. While awaiting her next hearing, Alyssa attempted self-harm by scratching herself with her nails and showed severe anxiety and depression. Concerned for her well-being, prison doctors placed her under close watch to prevent any further attempts at self-harm. Witnessing her mental state, her attorney filed a motion for a psychiatric evaluation and requested that she be transferred to a mental health facility. The judge agreed, and Alyssa was moved from jail to the Children's Psychiatric Hospital, then later to Fulton State Hospital for further assessment. Due to the accused's mental health issues, the trial was postponed until May 16, 2011. However, Alyssa's attorney filed a motion to move the date forward, arguing that she was facing severe public judgment. According to her lawyer, Alyssa had already been condemned by the public, and speeding up the process was essential for her mental health. The trial was set for January 30, 2012, but before that date, Alyssa expressed a desire to confess. On January 10th of that year, she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and armed criminal action. This choice was partly strategic, as a second-degree murder conviction could mean life with the possibility of parole, or a sentence ranging from 10 to 30 years. She hoped to avoid a death sentence. Some speculated that this was part of a legal strategy, but her new lawyer insisted she simply wanted to take responsibility for her actions. That same day, the Cole County Circuit Judge asked Alyssa to recount, in her own words, what happened on October 21, 2009. Without emotion, Alyssa admitted to strangling and stabbing Elizabeth. When prosecutors asked if she had also used a knife to cut Elizabeth's throat, Alyssa confirmed she had. Her grandmother, overcome with grief, left the courtroom, heartbroken by her granddaughter's confession. Alyssa's lawyers then brought up her mental state at the time of the crime, mentioning that she had attempted suicide 2 years prior and had been prescribed a higher dose of antidepressants just 2 weeks before the murder. They highlighted her traumatic family history, noting her mother's abandonment and her father's incarceration. Psychologists who examined her testified that she was severely emotionally disturbed, suffering from major depression and symptoms of borderline personality disorder. Alyssa's legal team hoped these details might reduce her sentence or lead to psychiatric treatment rather than prison, but their efforts were unsuccessful. The prosecutor demanded a life sentence plus an additional 71 years for the life Elizabeth lost, citing Alyssa's premeditation and the 2 graves she had dug as proof. Ultimately, Alyssa was convicted of second-degree murder and armed criminal action. On February 8, 2012, Alyssa returned to court and, for the first time, addressed Elizabeth's family directly. "I know words will never be enough. They can't describe how terrible I feel about all this. If I could trade my life to bring hers back, I would. I'm so sorry." However, her words did little to sway Elizabeth's family. Patricia, Elizabeth's mother, called Alyssa a diabolical monster, while Elizabeth's grandmother shouted from her wheelchair, "Alyssa should be released from jail the same day Elizabeth comes out of her grave." That day, Alyssa was sentenced to life in prison for second-degree murder with the possibility of parole after 35 years and 5 months, meaning she could apply for release when she turns 50. In 2014, Alyssa attempted to appeal her sentence, pointing out that the U.S. Supreme Court had recently ruled against mandatory life sentences without parole for minors. She claimed she would not have pleaded guilty had she known this. However, in a later hearing, she admitted she was aware of her other options when she took the plea. The Missouri State Court of Appeals denied her request in March 2014, but her legal battles weren't over. In October 2015, Patricia filed a lawsuit against Alyssa for the wrongful death of her daughter, seeking more than $5 million in damages. The trial was set for August 7, 2017, but in March of that year, Alyssa signed a settlement agreement. On June 25, Patricia accepted the settlement and dismissed the charges, adding a condition that Alyssa must notify her whenever she receives money for publicizing details about Elizabeth's case. In the years following her conviction, Alyssa gained an unsettling cult following. She received letters almost daily from fans who saw her as a rebellious icon, some even claiming that violence was a solution to their own struggles. On social media, many of these troubled young fans called for her release, declaring their admiration and support, seemingly ignoring the pain endured by Elizabeth's family. Currently, Alyssa remains in prison. She still hopes to secure parole before turning 50, arguing that she should not have been tried as an adult and that her personal history should have been considered more heavily. Despite this, she shows little remorse for her actions, and prison staff consider her a high-risk inmate who refuses psychiatric treatment, insisting she is a normal person. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations. One quiet night in October 2023, a 13-year-old boy made a shocking 911 call that left the Hialeah, Florida, community stunned. His voice was shaky and full of fear as he admitted to something terrible that had just happened in his home, a crime that no one could have expected. With his newborn sister asleep in the next room and his stepfather far away, the boy's confession started an investigation that uncovered dark and surprising details about what took place that night. But why did this young boy do such a terrible thing? And could there be more to the story? The truth is much more complicated than it seems. Irina Garcia, born around 1984, was of Cuban descent and moved to Miami, Florida, with her mother. While not much is known about her early life, she later married Jose Rosa, a man serving in the military, and they welcomed their first child, Derek Rosa, on August 26, 2010. Although Irina and Jose eventually divorced, they maintained a friendly co-parenting relationship. Derek spent weekdays with his mother and stayed with his father every other weekend. He also had a strong bond with his maternal grandmother. Derek grew up as a respectful and well-behaved child, known for his academic achievements and strong character. He was a student at Mater Academy, excelling in his studies, and had dreams of becoming an engineer in the U.S. military. As time passed, Irina found love again with Frank Ramos, a fellow Cuban who worked as a long-distance truck driver. The couple moved into an apartment in Hialeah, Florida. In 2023, Irina became pregnant with her second child. A few days before giving birth, the family captured their joy in a photo shoot, celebrating the upcoming arrival of their daughter, Ashley, born in late September of that year. By all accounts, Irina was a warm and kind person, creating a harmonious and loving home. However, on October 12, 2023, just days after Derek's 13th birthday, their lives were shattered. That day, Derek made a shocking 911 call confessing that he had killed his mother with a knife. His voice was filled with fear and hesitation during the 17-minute call as he tried to explain to the dispatcher what had happened. He revealed that he was home alone with his mother and his 14-day-old sister who was asleep in her crib. Frank, his stepfather, was away on a trip, testing a truck outside the city. During the call, Derek mentioned that his stepfather had 2 firearms, one of which was in the apartment. After committing the crime, Derek had briefly considered using one of the guns to harm himself, but ultimately decided against it. He also revealed that he had spoken to a friend about the incident, a detail that left authorities stunned and raised more questions. When asked by the dispatcher why he had attacked his mother, Derek provided an answer that was not publicly disclosed. Throughout the call, the dispatcher worked to keep him calm and occupied, while officers traced his location and rushed to the scene. As police approached the home, the tension increased, and the dispatcher urged Derek to keep his hands empty and move away from any weapons. When officers arrived, Derek peacefully surrendered and was taken into custody while neighbors recorded the scene. Inside the home, police found a gruesome sight, Irina's body, lying on the bed covered in blood. Beside her, the newborn baby slept peacefully, unharmed. The infant was later placed in the care of her maternal grandmother. That same night, Derek was interrogated by the Hialeah police. Despite the gravity of his actions, he remained calm and composed during the questioning. He confessed that after going to bed around 10 p.m., he had woken up just after 11:30 p.m., gone to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and entered his mother's room. While Irina slept next to her baby, Derek attacked her.
What type of knife was it? Do you know?
It was just a big size kitchen knife.
That big?
Yeah.
What did you do with the guns?
I grabbed the gun. I pulled back to slide, but I didn't want to shoot myself.
Okay.
I intended to shoot myself before, but I couldn't.
Why did you kill your mother? Do you know?
If I have to say it now,
Yeah, get it off your chest. Absolutely.
I can't wait for a lawyer.
During the interview, Derek detailed the bloodstains on his shirt and hands, explaining they were from the attack. He even demonstrated the size of the knife he used, describing how he first targeted her neck, believing it was a vulnerable spot. During Derek's interrogation, as seen in the video footage, he appeared calm while answering detectives' questions. He admitted that before committing the crime, he had insulted his mother in Spanish. The first stab had startled her, and she only managed to scream once before falling silent. However, Derek's demeanor changed significantly when a detective asked about his reasons for killing his mother. He requested to use the bathroom and then remained quiet for a few moments. He finally questioned whether he needed to answer that question at that time and asked for a lawyer, bringing the interrogation to a close. The forensic examination of Irina revealed a total of 46 wounds, many inflicted on her face. Additionally, the investigation of Derek's phone uncovered disturbing images that horrified those who saw them. Not only had Derek contacted a friend to tell him about the crime, but he had also sent 3 photographs, 2 of his deceased mother and one of himself posing for a chilling selfie with blood on his hands. The friend, whom Derek mentioned both in his 911 call and later to detectives, was someone he had met through online gaming when he was 10 years old. They had never met in person and communicated mostly on weekends. Derek didn't even know his real name, referring to him only by the alias Sweden, which was saved in his phone. The search history on Derek's phone revealed unsettling queries before the crime, such as how to kill someone with a knife, the most effective method to do it, and where to target the body for the quickest result. Authorities noted that Derek had specifically researched the jugular vein. As the sole suspect in his mother's murder, Derek was taken into custody, while investigators confirmed that his stepfather, Frank, had been out of state at the time of the incident, working in Georgia. The community was left in shock, struggling to comprehend how a promising young boy could become entangled in such a tragic event. Neighbors and friends expressed disbelief, remembering Derek as a polite and dedicated student. His family requested privacy as they mourned the loss of Irina. A Hialeah police spokesperson revealed that Derek had been a model student, with no previous issues at home or school. He had no known history of mental health problems that could have explained his actions. On October 27, 2023, the authorities announced that Derek would face a charge of first-degree murder and would be tried as an adult. His request for house arrest under the supervision of his father and grandmother was denied, and he was transferred to the Metro West Detention Center in Doral. Due to his age, he was kept isolated from the general prison population and monitored 24/7, as he was considered a danger to himself. Despite the overwhelming evidence, some rallied in Derek's defense, including his family. His father described him as a respectful student and was baffled by what could have driven his son to such an act. Having served in the military for 22 years, he believed he had instilled strong values in his child. Derek's maternal grandmother referred to him as the best boy in the world, urging people not to misunderstand the situation, as no one knew him better than she did. A campaign, titled Save Derek Rosa, was launched online, garnering over 23,000 signatures in support of the teenager. The petition raised doubts about Derek's involvement, suggesting that his search history might have been manipulated or that someone else could have used his device. There was also suspicion that Derek, whose first language was English, might not have written the Spanish search terms found on his phone. Some claimed there was a second voice heard during Derek's 911 call and demanded further investigation into other family members, particularly Frank. Although Frank was never a suspect, many speculated about his involvement. Some accused him of manipulating Derek, and rumors about Frank's personal life sparked public interest. Speculation arose that Frank had a second family in his home country, with photos surfacing online showing him with another woman and 2 girls. However, no concrete evidence linked him to a hidden past. After the crime, Frank opposed the defense's request to search the apartment, claiming that Derek's father and other relatives had already removed several items. The prosecution supported Frank's decision, though this refusal added to public suspicion. Frank's lack of public statements further fueled conspiracy theories, with many wondering about his whereabouts following the incident. On December 14th, the trial began. Derek's grandmother, father, and other relatives attended, and several testimonies were given in defense of the teenager. The defense lawyers argued for Derek's transfer to a juvenile detention center, stating that his rights were being violated by keeping him in an adult facility, given that he was a minor. Prosecutors, on the other hand, argued that Derek's current situation ensured he received an education while incarcerated. Testifying in his favor were a counselor and 2 teachers who provided him with personalized lessons to help him continue his high school education. Although the teenager spent around 20 hours a day confined in his cell, he had limited interactions. He met with his math teacher 3 times a week and had language classes for another 3 hours each week. The prison housed 34 other minors, but Derek, being the youngest at 13, had restricted interactions, limited to brief periods of playing soccer and basketball with a single other inmate. Derek's math instructor testified that the boy responded to lessons just like any other student. Meanwhile, his language teacher noted that Derek often expressed confusion during lessons, leading her to suspect he had learning difficulties. However, she also emphasized that Derek was polite and a diligent student. Derek's attorneys argued that he had lost 6 pounds during his first few months in detention. They called a forensic psychologist to testify, although the psychologist had not personally evaluated Derek. The specialist attributed Derek's weight loss to depression caused by isolation and testified that Derek was likely experiencing severe self-harm tendencies, which were not visibly apparent. The psychologist also suggested that Derek could be on the autism spectrum and recommended that he be treated as if he had autism until proven otherwise. The Correctional Health Services psychologist diagnosed Derek with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and confirmed that he had tendencies towards self-harm. It was notable that this was the first mention of Derek potentially being on the autism spectrum. Up until that point, he had not been diagnosed with any such condition, and his school records from the past 8 years had shown no signs of any deficiencies. Investigators who interacted with Derek in the hours following the crime also testified during this hearing, and the disturbing video of his confession was shown to the court. This was one of the few moments when Derek lowered his head and appeared to cry. Additionally, the state attorney's office released 2 new security videos as evidence. In the first video, Derek is seen opening the door to the apartment where his mother Irina is seated, holding the newborn baby. According to some sources, there was an argument between them. The second video shows Derek standing by his mother's bed as she slept, moments before her life was taken. The court also viewed photographs of the crime scene, including the weapon used. With these grim details, prosecutors aimed to prevent the judge from authorizing Derek's transfer to a juvenile detention center, insisting that he posed a danger to the community. After several days of testimony, the judge expressed concern over the relatively small amount of time Derek was allowed outside his cell but found no clear violation of his constitutional rights. As a result, the defense's request for a transfer to a juvenile facility was denied, and the judge ordered Derek to remain in the adult detention center. In an emotional hearing on Thursday, February 15th, defense attorneys presented 26 letters written by family members, all emphasizing that Derek was a kind, loving child and that the crime did not reflect his true character. The courtroom was filled with tension and hope as the letters were read aloud, highlighting the deep emotional impact of the situation on Derek's family and supporters. Derek's grandmother, father, and other family members attended the hearing, their faces filled with concern and love. Supporters from different parts of the United States had also traveled to be there, wearing T-shirts emblazoned with "Save Derek." Their presence was a powerful display of unwavering support for the young boy. Many in attendance echoed the sentiment that a child is innocent until proven guilty, and they firmly believed Derek Rosa could not have committed such a heinous act. His maternal grandmother emphasized that Derek was not an adult, but still a child who needed guidance. His biological father pleaded for leniency and a second chance to help Derek grow and learn from his mistakes. Both underscored the strong family support surrounding him. The letters submitted on Derek's behalf mostly asked the court not to treat him as an adult in the legal process. Derek's defense team argued that they were not prepared for trial because the prosecution had not provided all the necessary evidence. They pointed out key missing elements such as witness reports, footage from the baby monitor, clothing, and other personal items. Derek's attorney requested a court order forcing the prosecution to hand over the missing evidence or to exclude it from the case if it wasn't produced by a specific deadline. However, the prosecution had also been unable to access data from Derek's computer, tablets, and gaming consoles. The judge overseeing the case confirmed that there were 750 photos and multiple witness statements involved and ordered the prosecution to submit all unedited information. A new hearing date was set, but the judge maintained his decision to try Derek as an adult. Despite the judge's expressed urgency to expedite the trial, citing concerns about Derek's conditions in detention, the case became tangled in a series of hearings and delays. Throughout the proceedings, the defense petitioned for Derek to be declared indigent, arguing that the family lacked the financial resources to afford private attorneys. They requested that the state cover the costs for case preparation, including mental health experts, forensic analysis, and witness testimonies. At the most recent hearing, held on September 21, 2024, Derek appeared virtually and remained silent. His family broke down in tears upon seeing him on the screen, overwhelmed with emotion and pain. Concerned about the lengthy periods Derek spent in isolation, his lawyers once again petitioned to transfer him from the adult jail to a juvenile detention center. According to news reports, March records indicated that Derek had only been out of his cell for a total of 119 hours, with just 5 hours devoted to his education. Despite these revelations, the judge denied the request once again. New developments emerged when the prosecution identified Derek's mysterious online friend from the night of the crime. Through electronic device analysis, detectives traced the phone's owner and conducted an interrogation. Derek's trial is scheduled for December 2nd, 2024, with at least 28 witnesses expected to testify. The prosecution plans to present video testimony from Sweden, Derek's online friend. Meanwhile, the defense has reportedly obtained text messages between the Hialeah police detectives and Derek's stepfather, which could shed light on their relationship and whether any influence or manipulation took place before the crime. This ongoing investigation focuses on official information, witness statements, and family accounts. As the case is still unresolved, we refrain from making any judgments regarding Derek's innocence or guilt. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations. Rick and Susanna lived what seemed like an ideal life. They owned a large home in a quiet suburb, had 2 loving children, and enjoyed financial security from their well-established careers. On the surface, everything was perfect. Yet, beneath this calm exterior, troubling secrets simmered within the walls of the Walmsley family home. It wasn't until an unexpected 911 call set events in motion that the truth began to emerge. Just before the holiday season in the small town of Mansfield, Texas, local police received a mysterious open-line call. Responding quickly, they arrived to find the home's side door unlocked and 2 garages wide open. What awaited them inside was a horrific discovery. Rick Walmsley, a respected accountant, and his always optimistic wife had tragically lost their lives in their own home. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the tragic incident had taken place well before the 911 call had even been made. Rick and Susanna Walmsley first met as classmates in Oklahoma during the 1970s. Though they didn't become high school sweethearts, they left an impression on each other. Years later, as Rick pursued his studies at Oklahoma State University and Susanna attended a Christian college, their paths crossed once more. Their old connection reignited, and before long, what began as a casual reconnection turned into something more serious. The two began dating, and soon enough, they knew they wanted to build a life together. They married, and in 1978, their daughter Sarah was born. 6 years later, they welcomed their son Andrew. Rick found success as a certified accountant, working in the oil and gas industry, and over the years, his career saw the family relocate several times. Eventually, they settled in Fort Worth, Texas, along the banks of the Trinity River, a large yet tranquil city steeped in history. Rick opened his own accounting firm from his home office, providing the family with a comfortable income. By 2003, the Walmsleys lived in the upscale community of Mansfield, just 20 miles from Fort Worth. Their daughter Sarah, now 25, had become a mother and moved into her own apartment. Their 19-year-old son, Andrew, had just graduated from high school and was attending college part-time while working at a mini golf course. Rick and Susanna were celebrating a happy life together, having marked their 25th wedding anniversary that summer with friends and family. As Christmas 2003 approached, Susanna eagerly prepared for their holiday celebrations, adorning the house with festive decorations and carefully selecting gifts for her loved ones. The living room sparkled with lights, and a large Christmas tree stood proudly, surrounded by presents wrapped with care. Everything seemed perfect for the family's 25th Christmas together. But the peaceful scene in Mansfield was shattered on December 11, 2003. At 11:41 p.m., a 911 dispatcher received a call from the Walmsley residence. On the other end, there was only silence, indicating that someone may have been in distress but unable to speak. Acting quickly, the dispatcher sent officers to the home. Upon arrival, the police found the side door leading to the garage open, but no one responded to their knocks or rings at the door. Once inside, officers were confronted with a grim sight. Susanna Walmsley, 45, was found lying cold on the living room couch. Rick, 46, was discovered in the foyer near the front door, lifeless in a pool of blood. The emergency responders quickly confirmed that both had been dead for some time. The investigation revealed horrifying details. Susanna had been shot and stabbed multiple times, even after she had likely passed away. It appeared she had been attacked while resting in the living room. Nearby, detectives found bloody palm prints, a bullet, and fragments of a broken hair clip, all crucial pieces of evidence. Rick had also been shot and stabbed, but his injuries suggested he had fought back against the attacker before succumbing to his wounds. A tuft of hair in his hand pointed to a violent struggle. Despite initial suspicions of a robbery, the discovery of $15,000 in cash left untouched in the master bedroom led investigators to dismiss that theory. Nothing of value had been taken, and there were no signs of forced entry. Neighbors and friends, stunned by the tragedy, could not fathom who might have wanted to harm the Walmsleys. Rick and Susanna were beloved members of the community, known for their kindness and hospitality. Outwardly, the Walmsleys had a picture-perfect life. Rick's accounting practice flourished, and Susanna took pride in caring for their home and children. Yet, the horrifying events behind the closed doors of their house painted a starkly different picture of what was happening within their family. According to those close to the Walmsley family, tension often simmered beneath the surface, especially when it came to their children, Sarah and Andrew. As a teenager, Sarah was sent away from the family home due to what her parents saw as inappropriate behavior. This led to her becoming pregnant at 19 and entering a turbulent relationship with her daughter's father. Her relationship with her younger brother Andrew was equally strained, as the siblings constantly quarreled, never developing a close bond. Sarah's ex-boyfriend shared that the Walmsleys were skeptical of outsiders, often believing that even their friends had ulterior motives, assuming they only wanted something from them. Despite their growing financial success, it seemed to bring more tension than joy to their lives. There were rumors that Rick and Susanna's marriage wasn't as stable as it appeared, though they did their best to maintain an image of happiness in public. The Walmsleys had a clear agreement with their children. As long as they were enrolled in college, they would receive financial support. While Sarah didn't follow through, Andrew managed to convince his parents that he would keep his end of the deal. To reward him, they bought him a new white Mustang, covered his insurance, and gave him money for his expenses. Though Andrew lived at home without contributing financially, things seemed peaceful, at least on the surface. However, Andrew had also dropped out of college without telling his parents. When Rick and Susanna discovered the truth, they cut off his financial support but did not go as far as to kick him out of the house. As tensions lingered, 19-year-old Andrew spent most of his free time with friends at a local pancake house, a popular hangout spot. It was there that he met 19-year-old Chelsea Richardson, introduced by a friend. On the morning of December 11, 2003, Sarah was informed about her parents' deaths at 4 a.m., but Andrew was nowhere to be found. The police had already turned to the media, asking for help in locating his white Mustang. While forensic teams continued working at the Walmsley house, Andrew and his girlfriend Chelsea unexpectedly pulled up in the Mustang. The two had been staying at Chelsea's house for the past few days and claimed they had just learned about the tragedy from watching the news. Both were immediately taken to the police station for questioning. During his 45-minute interview, Andrew told officers that he hadn't been home in days and hadn't spoken to his parents. He revealed that he had been staying with Chelsea the entire time. Though there were fresh scratches on his hand, nothing else in his story seemed suspicious, and he was free to leave. However, before leaving, the police asked him to sign a consent form allowing them to search his car. Later, Andrew told his sister that investigators would likely find their mother's blood in the Mustang. He explained that Susanna had recently cut her finger and for some reason decided to drive his car to the store afterward. While this could account for the blood traces, Chelsea's story aligned with Andrew's, and she confirmed that they had been together for the past 2 days. The couple had spent most of their time playing a Japanese, a fantasy battle game that brought them closer. Their bond over the game was so strong that they had begun discussing marriage, feeling like they had found in each other a perfect match. Chelsea Richardson's mother fully supported her daughter's relationship and was fond of her new boyfriend, Andrew Walmsley. However, Rick and Susanna were less than thrilled about their son's choice. They had envisioned a different kind of partner for Andrew, someone who would align more with their affluent lifestyle. The Richardsons, who lived on the outskirts of Fort Worth in a working-class neighborhood, were far from the upscale homes of Mansfield. Chelsea's family had faced hardships, especially after her father's unexpected death from a heart attack. Her mother often worked multiple jobs just to keep the household running. Despite their financial struggles, the Richardsons were known for their generosity. Chelsea, with her extroverted and bubbly personality, was popular at school, earning her the nickname Bubbles. She was especially close to her best friend, Susanna Toledano, who frequently stayed at the Richardson home whenever she had issues with her own family. On the night of the Walmsley murders, Andrew, Chelsea, and Susanna were together, spending time at Chelsea's ex-boyfriend Jeremy's house. Jeremy confirmed their alibi, claiming that they had been with him the entire time. Despite this, Sarah Walmsley, Andrew's sister, suggested to police that her ex might have been involved in their parents' deaths. She mentioned that they had recently been fighting over custody issues, and she had even threatened to involve Child Protective Services. 1 month prior to the tragedy, another suspicious event occurred. While driving home after horseback riding lessons, the Walmsley family's Jeep was hit by what they initially thought was a large rock. However, upon inspection, they discovered a bullet hole in the rear of the vehicle. Although frightened, Susanna Walmsley made 2 phone calls, first to her son Andrew rather than the police. She had thought the car trailing them belonged to Andrew, but after the shooting she realized it was not. Despite Sarah's suspicions that her ex might have been involved, investigators eventually ruled him out as a suspect. Attention soon turned to the Walmsley children, particularly because Rick and Susanna's estate included a $1 million life insurance policy and significant assets. Both Sarah and Andrew stood to inherit substantial wealth. However, forensic evidence didn't initially link the siblings to the crime scene, and Andrew's alibi appeared solid. Even though blood was found in the back of Andrew's Mustang, the car had been meticulously cleaned, and investigators couldn't determine whose blood it was. As months passed without significant progress, the investigation hit a standstill. The district attorney decided to convene a grand jury, issuing subpoenas to key individuals connected to the Walmsleys. Jeremy once again testified that Andrew, Chelsea, and Susanna had been with him the night of the murders, offering them a solid alibi. Susanna even voluntarily provided a DNA sample for comparison with evidence found at the crime scene. The investigation took a pivotal turn when Susanna's DNA was matched to the strand of hair found in Rick Walmsley's hand and the broken hair clip left at the scene. This discovery shattered the notion of an outsider being responsible. Susanna was arrested and faced the possibility of the death penalty. Realizing the severity of her situation, Susanna began to talk. She initially claimed that on the night of the murders, she had been with a friend, a 25-year-old man named Hilario Cardenas, who had a gun and needed money. According to her, Hilario entered the Walmsley home alone while she waited outside. However, as investigators dug deeper, they suspected that the truth was far more complicated than Susanna's initial story. Susanna Toledano initially claimed that after hearing gunshots, she rushed to the scene. According to her, Rick Walmsley, the family patriarch, begged her to stop the attack, but she insisted she wasn't truly involved and had no way to prevent it. However, this story quickly began to unravel. So who was Hilario Cardenas? Hilario, a night manager at a local restaurant where Andrew, Chelsea, and Susanna often spent time, had become familiar with the group. He had a young daughter to care for and was in desperate need of money. It was through his friendship with Andrew that Hilario learned of the Walmsley family's wealth. During questioning, Hilario denied taking part in the murders but did admit to purchasing a gun for $200 at Andrew's request. The teenagers, Andrew, Chelsea, and Susanna, wanted to practice shooting at a friend's farm. Investigators began verifying Hilario's story, starting with the owner of the property where the group had allegedly practiced. The owner, a friend of Chelsea's mother, confirmed that the teenagers had indeed visited her 3-acre plot to shoot at a nearby pond. She also stated that she had no knowledge of Hilario, who later gained the trust of investigators by passing a polygraph test. Forensic teams drained the pond on the property and recovered bullets that matched those found at the Walmsley home. This proved that the group had been practicing their shooting skills for months in preparation for the crime. With the discovery of matching ballistics, Susanna's initial claim about Hilario leading the attack fell apart. Given another chance to tell the truth, Susanna changed her story. This time, she implicated her best friend Chelsea and revealed a more detailed version of the events. According to Susanna's revised account, the 3 teenagers had spent numerous nights at a local cafe plotting the murder. They believed that once Rick and his wife were dead, Andrew would inherit over $1 million, and the friends could live a carefree life together. Susanna dreamed of quitting her low-paying job and buying a new car. The group convinced Hilario to purchase the gun. After honing their shooting skills at the farm, they devised their first plan, to shoot at Rick's Jeep's gas tank, hoping to blow it up and eliminate Rick, his wife, and Sarah all at once. However, when Susanna, riding in the white Mustang behind the Jeep, missed her shot, the group switched to Plan B, breaking into the Walmsley home in the middle of the night and staging the scene to look like a robbery. After the failed car attack, Chelsea became enraged and pressured Susanna to finish the job. On the night of December 11, 2003, the group made their second attempt. Armed with a gun, Susanna entered the house, while Andrew and Chelsea carried knives. Susanna confessed to shooting Susanna Walmsley while she lay on the couch. Andrew then led her to the master bedroom where she fired at Rick but missed, hitting the headboard instead. Rick woke up and fought back, leading to a struggle. During the chaos, Andrew took the gun from Susanna, handed her a knife, and instructed her to check on his mother. Susanna saw Rick kneeling, pleading with Chelsea, asking, "Why?" Chelsea coldly replied, "Because I'm pregnant," before Rick was shot. Susanna wasn't sure who pulled the trigger but knew that multiple knife wounds were inflicted on Rick after the shot was fired. In exchange for testifying against her friends, Susanna was able to avoid the death penalty that now loomed over Chelsea and Andrew. Despite Susanna's earlier lies, her final version of the story became the foundation of the prosecution's case. Friends of the Walmsley family found it difficult to believe that Andrew, raised by loving parents, could have been involved in their deaths. However, the testimony of Susanna was damning. On July 1, 2004, 7 months after the murders, the authorities formally charged Andrew and Chelsea with the killings. Chelsea's behavior in prison didn't help her case. She boasted about her involvement to cellmates and even attempted to convince some to fabricate an alibi for her. Her initial alibi, provided by Jeremy, fell apart when Jeremy admitted that he wasn't with the group that night, having been manipulated into lying. Chelsea, once a bubbly high school student, was painted as the mastermind behind the entire operation. The prosecution argued that she manipulated Andrew into believing they would be better off without his family and persuaded Susanna to carry out the killings. Chelsea even wrote a note to Susanna from jail, begging her to place the blame on Hilario and pleading that she and Andrew's unborn child deserved a future. Susanna, however, doubted that Chelsea was actually pregnant. Susanna's testimony was crucial in securing convictions against both Chelsea and Andrew. After a swift deliberation, the jury found Chelsea guilty of capital murder. They sentenced her to death by lethal injection. Andrew's defense team, citing his schizoid personality disorder, managed to convince the jury to spare him from death row. Instead, Andrew was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 2044. During his trial in 2006, Andrew claimed that he killed his parents due to years of emotional and physical abuse, but the jury rejected his defense. Hilario, though not directly involved in the murders, was found guilty of conspiracy to commit a felony and sentenced to 50 years in prison with the possibility of parole in 2023. Chelsea, who was once slated for execution, had her sentence reduced to life in prison in 2012 after Susanna's testimony raised doubts about her role as the primary instigator. As for Susanna, she remains incarcerated with the possibility of parole in 2034. What started as a plot for a carefree life left the trio with long prison sentences, ensuring they won't have to worry about their futures for many years to come. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations. In August 2013, the quiet town of Bakersfield, California, was rocked by the shocking discovery of Todd Chance's lifeless body in a remote almond grove. A devoted father and husband, Todd's murder left investigators scrambling to find answers. As they dug deeper, what seemed like a straightforward case quickly turned into something far more complex. With each clue, the mystery only deepened, leaving one pressing question: who wanted Todd Chance dead, and why? Todd Chance, born on March 10, 1968, to Diana and Travis Chance, grew up on a farm in the small town of Shafter, near Bakersfield. Alongside his younger brother Scott, Todd learned the value of hard work at a young age, helping his parents raise livestock like pigs and horses. He was known as a true cowboy, often seen donning his cowboy hat and boots, while off-road riding with his father was one of his favorite pastimes. As a teenager, Todd developed a passion for race cars. His parents gifted him a blue Mustang Cobra when he reached driving age, and it quickly became part of his identity. With his rugged charm and sporty car, Todd never struggled for female attention. His mother, Diana, often joked that he was a magnet for girls, who would leave notes on his car windshield asking him to call them. However, despite the attention, Todd's heart was captured by a young woman named Jania. Jania worked as a cashier at a local pharmacy. Having been through a brief and unhappy marriage that ended due to her ex-husband's infidelity, she was now a single mother to a little girl named Jessica. After her divorce, Jania hoped that her next relationship would be with someone who valued and cherished her. When she first met Todd, who had recently started working as a security guard at the pharmacy, she saw him as a ladies' man. However, after getting to know him, her perception changed. Todd wasn't the player she thought he was. He was kind, caring, and sincere, and he soon fell deeply in love with Jania. He also embraced her daughter, Jessica, treating her as his own. Their love story blossomed quickly, and in 1996, Todd and Jania got married. They expanded their family with 2 more daughters, Samantha and Sarah. Despite their busy lives, their relationship thrived, and Jania worked multiple jobs while dreaming of earning a degree in education. As Todd pursued his passion for vehicles by becoming a truck driver, Jania continued working toward her goal of becoming an educator. Her hard work paid off, and after starting as a school secretary, she eventually became the principal of Fairview Elementary School. Todd, who had spent over 15 years in the trucking industry, was proud of his wife's success, and their family enjoyed the stability her new position brought. By the summer of 2013, the family was living comfortably, able to afford luxurious vacations and provide a good life for their daughters. They had just returned from an unforgettable trip to San Francisco and Las Vegas, which Samantha and Sarah described as the best summer of their lives. Sadly, this joyful time was soon overshadowed by tragedy. On the morning of August 25, 2013, at 9:27 a.m., the police received a call from workers at an almond grove located about 15 miles from Bakersfield. They had discovered a body. Emergency responders quickly identified the victim as 45-year-old Todd Chance, who still had his wallet and identification on him. His mobile phone was found nearby, and tire tracks indicated that a vehicle had been driven away from the scene. Todd had been shot twice in the chest at close range, and investigators believed one of the bullets had pierced his arm as he tried to defend himself. While Todd's wallet and phone were intact, his prized black 2011 Mustang was missing, leading detectives to initially suspect a carjacking. The investigation kicked off immediately, as authorities sought to piece together how Todd had ended up in such a remote location and why someone would have taken his life. In 2013, residents of a local neighborhood in Bakersfield, California, were puzzled when they saw a sleek black Mustang abandoned in an area notorious for gang activity and illegal drug trade. It seemed out of place for such an expensive car to be left in a district known for high crime rates. Concerned, they reported it to the police, and investigators quickly arrived at the scene. The car was unlocked, and the keys were lying on the floor. Detectives also discovered a revolver with 2 spent casings inside, making them suspect it was the murder weapon. Yet, leaving the gun in the car of the victim, Todd Chance, struck them as unusual. A closer forensic investigation revealed fingerprints and DNA inside the Mustang that belonged to Todd's wife, Jania Chance. Her prints were found on the driver's side door and gear shift, which could be explained by her being his spouse and likely using the car at times. However, it raised questions for the detectives, especially since their initial theory of a carjacking didn't align with the evidence. Why would someone steal a car, kill its owner, and then leave it unlocked with the keys inside? The more investigators uncovered, the more the situation suggested this wasn't a random act, but rather a deliberate attack. Todd cherished his Mustang. It was like a fourth child to him, a symbol of pride and joy. He would never have left it in such a suspicious area by choice. The evidence began to suggest that someone had intentionally left the vehicle in this remote spot to confuse the investigation. The coroner's report further complicated matters, indicating that Todd's death was a calculated execution. He had been shot twice at close range, and either bullet wound could have been fatal. Todd likely died within minutes of the attack, and his body was dumped later at the almond grove where it was discovered. Adding another layer to the mystery, Todd's shoes were completely clean, despite the dusty terrain of the almond grove where his body was found. If he had walked there, his sneakers would have been dusty, which strongly suggested he had been killed elsewhere and brought to the grove afterward. Later that day, the police arrived at the Chance family home to deliver the devastating news of Todd's death. His wife was calm and composed, offering the detectives her full cooperation. She provided them with phone records, bank statements, and a timeline of events from the morning Todd left the house, telling her he was going to a gun show with his father. According to her, Todd left around 7:30 or 8 a.m., while she remained home working on her computer. Their 2 daughters, Samantha and Sarah, confirmed seeing their mother working on the laptop around 9:30 or 10 a.m. When asked to check Todd's gun safe, Jania discovered that his pistol was missing. She found it odd that Todd would have taken the gun, though she speculated he might have planned to trade or sell it at the gun show. The fact that a gun was found in the Mustang made it seem like Todd had been shot with his own weapon. However, when detectives spoke with Todd's father, Travis, a contradiction emerged. Travis denied any knowledge of a gun show and claimed he hadn't seen his son that day. They had no plans to meet up, which was entirely different from what Jania had told the police. This inconsistency raised new questions. Was Jania lying, or had Todd lied to his wife about his plans that morning? Investigators then turned their attention to the supposed gun show. It was real and did take place that morning, but it was located on the opposite side of Bakersfield, far from where Todd's body was found. This further discredited the story of Todd heading to the event. As detectives dug deeper into Todd's phone records, they stumbled upon an unexpected discovery: intimate photos of his ex-fiancée, Carrie Williams. Accompanying the images were flirtatious text messages exchanged between Todd and Carrie, discussing personal matters, including Todd's wife. This revelation shifted the focus of the investigation, as the text suggested Todd may have been rekindling a relationship with his former lover. Jania's calm demeanor during the police's initial visit and her inconsistent account of the events that morning now seemed more suspicious. Detectives theorized that Todd might have been planning to meet Carrie instead of going to the gun show, which could have triggered a jealous confrontation between him and his wife. The investigators began considering the possibility that Jania had discovered Todd's secret correspondence with Carrie and, in a fit of rage, killed her husband. Interestingly, Todd's relationship with Carrie predated his marriage to Jania. While they had broken up on bad terms and hadn't spoken for a long time, they reconnected in 2012, just a year before Todd's death. This newfound connection gave Jania a motive and cast her in a darker light, making her a prime suspect in her husband's murder. The police were initially unsure about Carrie Williams' potential involvement, so they arranged an interview to better understand her connection to Todd. Aside from the intimate photos and messages, Carrie provided a solid alibi. During the time of the crime, she was at a museum with her daughter. Her presence was verified by a parking ticket. Carrie explained that she and Todd had reconnected online after many years, exchanging messages and photos, but they hadn't met in person. With her alibi confirmed, Carrie was ruled out as a suspect. The detectives, still suspicious of Todd's wife, decided to avoid making accusations without concrete proof. Their persistence eventually paid off, as new, unsettling evidence came to light. They already had the victim's phone, gun, and car, but none had revealed foreign fingerprints or DNA. Determined, the police returned to the street where Todd's Mustang had been abandoned. This time, they canvassed the neighborhood, hoping a resident might have noticed something. Several witnesses reported seeing a woman near the car that morning, someone they didn't recognize. The woman, described as middle-aged, was wearing a baseball cap that concealed her hair and large sunglasses that covered most of her face. She exited the black Mustang and walked away. Detectives also identified a few surveillance cameras in the area, and upon reviewing the footage, they saw a figure matching the witness descriptions. The person had a red backpack and carried a plastic bag. There was initial confusion over the suspect's gender, but the video and witness reports confirmed the figure was a woman. The detectives traced her movements through additional surveillance footage. After leaving the Mustang, she entered a nearby fast food restaurant where she changed clothes and shoes in the restroom. In the plastic bag, officers noticed something resembling a container lid, possibly disinfectant wipes, which she likely used to clean the car. After the wardrobe change, the woman was seen near a waste container, making a motion as though discarding something. A camera captured her using a payphone to call a taxi shortly afterward. By tracking the footage, detectives noted the taxi dropped off a passenger at the Chance family home around 10 a.m. Earlier footage had shown Todd's black Mustang driving toward the almond grove at around 8 a.m., where his body was later found. The car was seen returning toward the city at about 8:30 a.m., and again near the area where it was abandoned at 8:57 a.m., right when Todd's body was discovered. Although the surveillance footage strongly suggested Jania was involved, the low quality of the video made it difficult to positively identify her. 4 days after Todd's death, police asked Jania to come to the station to retrieve her husband's car. She arrived with her father-in-law, Travis. The two were questioned separately and shown the surveillance footage. Travis couldn't identify the woman in the footage, stating that he didn't know anyone who would have needed to take Todd's car and abandon it. When Jania was questioned, she also claimed that she did not recognize the person in the video. However, when detectives pressed her further about the possibility that the woman was her, she refused to answer more questions and immediately requested a lawyer. At that point, the police arrested her on suspicion of murdering her husband. Her arrest shocked many who knew the family, splitting the community. Some believed she had killed Todd, while others thought the police had made a mistake. Her daughters were among those who stood by her, convinced of her innocence. While the community debated, detectives searched the Chance family home, confiscating all electronic devices to look for further evidence. However, it would take time to analyze everything. Despite the footage and evidence pointing toward Jania, the district attorney's office felt it wasn't enough to press charges. The poor quality of the footage and the lack of concrete evidence made it difficult to build a case that would hold up in court. After 5 days in custody, Jania was released, and to the surprise of many, she was even given her late husband's Mustang back. Though Jania was freed, she remained the prime suspect. The picture-perfect family, celebrating 17 years of marriage, with well-behaved children and having just returned from a vacation, was now in turmoil. No one had seen any major signs of trouble in their relationship, which only deepened the mystery. While the evidence seemed to point to Jania, proving her guilt in court was another matter entirely. The case, for the time being, stalled. However, the investigators refused to let the case go cold. Over the next several years, they worked tirelessly to gather additional evidence, determined to hold Jania accountable for what they believed was her role in Todd's murder. Eventually, they succeeded. During the Chance family's vacation in Las Vegas, they visited a crime-themed exhibition based on episodes from a well-known TV show in the U.S. At first glance, this visit seemed harmless. However, as the investigation into Todd's murder unfolded, detectives noted eerie similarities between the cases featured at the exhibition and the details of Todd's murder. One of the criminal cases showcased how a suspect used a payphone to avoid being tracked by their mobile phone. Another example involved a woman who killed her husband and then changed her clothes and shoes to avoid leaving microscopic blood evidence behind. Exactly what the perpetrator did in Todd's case, as seen in the surveillance footage. It appeared that Jania might have drawn inspiration from this exhibition on how to commit the crime and cover her tracks. But this wasn't the only incriminating information the police gathered. Her fingerprints were found on Todd's car, specifically on the driver's door and gear shift. When confronted, she insisted she had never driven the car because it had a manual transmission, raising suspicion about how her fingerprints ended up there. Investigators also unearthed surveillance footage from a few weeks before Todd's death, showing Jania in a supermarket asking a salesperson where she could find a payphone. This was odd since Jania had 2 mobile phones, leading the police to question why she needed a payphone. Furthermore, Jania's claim that she had been at home working on her computer the morning of the murder didn't hold up. Forensic analysis revealed that there was no activity on the family's computer until 11 a.m., meaning that she had plenty of time to carry out the crime. The detectives shared the surveillance footage with Todd and his wife's daughters. The eldest, Jessica, initially identified her mother in the footage, even recognizing a red backpack they had at home. However, She later retracted her statement, realizing it could implicate her mother. Sarah and Samantha, the younger daughters, insisted that their mother was home at the time, fully believing in their mother's innocence. Despite the daughters' unwavering support, detectives were convinced that Jania had a motive. One possibility was her discovery of Todd's affair with his ex-fiancée, Carrie. The second, more concrete motive was the $500,000 life insurance policy in Todd's name. As the primary breadwinner, Jania faced the potential of paying alimony if she and Todd divorced, making a separation less appealing. In the end, she managed to receive a large portion of the insurance payout, though Todd's parents, Travis and Diana, fought in court to secure funds for their granddaughters. After years of gathering evidence, 49-year-old Leslie Jania Chance was arrested and charged with Todd's murder in 2016. The trial, which began in December of that year, painted a chilling picture of the events on that fateful morning. Jania and Todd were seen leaving their home together, with Todd driving the car. At some point during the drive, Jania allegedly pulled a gun on him. Todd, attempting to defend himself, stretched out his hand, but the bullet pierced his palm and chest. Jenny then fired a second shot, killing him instantly. Afterward, she dragged Todd's body into the almond grove and drove away, abandoning the car in a rough neighborhood. She took precautions to wipe the car clean with disinfectant wipes, leaving behind the gun and the keys. However, her plan backfired when local residents promptly reported the abandoned Mustang to the police. Her lawyers tried to lean on the alibi provided by her daughters, but the fact that Jania herself had claimed the girls were asleep while she worked on the computer weakened their defense. The lack of activity on the computer until late morning further undermined her claims. During the trial, she maintained her innocence. She claimed to love her husband and denied knowing anything about his virtual affair with Carrie Williams. She also insisted that she didn't need Todd's life insurance money. In a surprising twist, she argued that she had poor eyesight and never wore contact lenses, suggesting that the woman seen in the surveillance footage couldn't have been her because she wouldn't have been able to see clearly with sunglasses on. However, the prosecution presented evidence that Jania had ordered contact lenses just a month before Todd's murder, exposing another lie. On January 31, 2020, the jury found Jania guilty of murdering her husband. The verdict shocked not only Jania, but also her family, especially her daughters, who had never believed their mother was capable of such a crime. In September 2020, she was sentenced to 50 years to life in prison, 25 years for the murder, and an additional 25 years for using a firearm in the commission of the crime. Despite the conviction, she continues to proclaim her innocence, giving interviews in which she asserts that she was wrongfully convicted. In January 2023, she appealed the verdict, but it was upheld. She won't be eligible for parole until 2041. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.